Hello, and welcome to what's going to be the first of a two-part series looking at the Stalker battle mech. The Stalker's been a very popular mech since it was added to the game, and for good reason. I was an early adopter of it, and I happen to love the thing. This two-part video series is going to be, if you like, a bit of a guide to it. If you're new to the Stalker, never driven one before, this may well be the video for you. I'm going to be looking at a general overview of the mech, just considering its strengths, its weaknesses, a quick look at hitboxes and how you want to avoid damage, and then I'll be having a look at a very basic Stalker that's a good groundwork for other builds. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, and yes, you're right, so a little disclaimer, I am, yes, looking at quite a cheesy build today. But before everyone just gets completely pissed off and leaves, there's a very good reason I'm looking at a cheesy build today, and well, what is that you're going to have to see later in the video. And I'll also be looking at a far more balanced and far less cheesy build in a part 2, and there might even be a part 3 to the Stalker. There's quite a few options of what you can do with it. So what do you get with the Stalker? Well, on this one, the 3F, you get 4 missile hardpoints and you get 6 laser hardpoints. No ballistics on this build, and no ballistics in fact on any Stalker, so if you want ballistics, you're looking at the wrong mech. Considering the chassis' inherent strengths, if you like, very quickly, compared to other assault mechs, it's got a very generous, very small target profile from the front. But unfortunately, it's not all good. This is probably the Stalker's biggest weakness. It has an absolutely ginormous side profile target. The mech certainly has a very generous helping of armour on the side, but it doesn't quite have enough distribution to the side torsos to really keep those afloat for a whole battle at times. Now the big problem, of course, is that once you lose your side torso, you also lose the arm. And so you lose one side torso on this mech, and the mech's down to half firepower. The second big weakness from a simple chassis point of view is lack of arms and the torso twist. Now this mech does have arms, let's be honest, it does have arms. There they are. They're rubbish. Consider them little T-Rex arms if you like, they don't give you any real range of movement. Effectively you've got centre torso and that's all you've got. So mostly so far it's been weaknesses, you might say. But the Stalker defines itself as possibly the most destructive mech currently in the game. This thing has the possibility to put out some absolutely outlandish firepower, and it is jolly good fun. A good analogy, if any of you are familiar with World of Tanks, I certainly used to play World of Tanks at one point in the past, this is a tank destroyer. It's got fairly bad range of movement, well, it's got pretty damn bad range of movement actually, at least stock, and if anything gets behind it, it can be in trouble. But it can put out a heck of a punch. Right, so I said I was going to look at a cheesy build to start off with. And yeah, here it is. What makes it cheesy? Well, let's have a look at the loadout very quickly while we're chasing this Centurion. Quite simple really, 6 medium lasers, 4 SRM6. A nice helping of armour, just enough heat sinks to get it running all the way to the end of a match. Double heat sinks being really an obvious and optimal upgrade. As with all new mechs, I did run this for quite a while with standard heatsinks. I like to do that before I decide whether or not to make the investment for double heatsinks. And you can use single heatsinks, but obviously they're not going to be anywhere near as good. But it is possible to put a build together very similar to this using standard heatsinks. As much ammo as you can pack, you'll probably run out of ammo with this mech occasionally, but you've still got the lasers, so that's never too much of a big deal, I find. So this mech's a very angry mech, it's a very in-your-face mech. It is very effective. But look, why am I looking at this mech? First of all, it's a very simple, very easy to use build. It's a little bit, you know, herp derp kind of thing. But it's a good groundwork from which you can put together more rounded builds and more effective builds. That's all well and good, but what's the real reason? If you think back to my analogy of this mech being a tank destroyer, a la World of Tanks, maybe this is going to start to make a bit of sense. What I've demonstrated here is that this mech can pack a big engine, simply charge into battle and unleash all kinds of hell on whoever you're up against. Unlike a tank destroyer in World of Tanks, you get to choose what speed you want to go, because you can put in a bigger engine if you want, or you can put in a small engine and you're just flipping slow. But the central concept to any Stalker build is it always starts with the engine, and then from the engine it dictates how you're going to play the mech. What's kind of unique about this mech is that it really has the chance to mitigate its greatest weakness, that being lack of mobility, by simply putting in a bigger engine. Not many mechs can do that with just one component. You look at an Atlas, and a lot of Atlas builds, the side torso with the ballistic slot, whether it's a Gauss rifle or an AC-20, that's very important to an Atlas, and there's only so much armour they can put on that slot. Once they lose that, they're often in a bit of trouble. Whereas this thing, its greatest weakness is just that it's not very manoeuvrable and it's a bit slow. And generally speaking, I would always, with a Stalker, say put in the biggest engine you can. But that doesn't mean just charging the battle. Don't be that guy. I mean, it can be fun, it can be very cathartic at times, just to charge into the middle of a fight, but it's going to go wrong at some point, and you're going to end up looking like a bit of an idiot. When I was writing the script for this video, I started out thinking about, okay, how do you play this mech defensively? How do you play this mech offensively? Key concepts to just how to get good use out of it. Really the truth is this is just a very simple mech. This mech, it's designed to shoot things. As I've said, it's probably the most destructive mech currently in the game. So really the two key concepts that have always got to be on your mind when you're playing this mech, and from what everything else stems from, whether it's defensive play or offensive play, is mobility and terrain. And really that's just like a tank destroyer. The first thing that should always be on your mind is asking yourself, how can I shoot them with everything I've got without letting them shoot me in the arse? And simply being fast and wading into battle isn't always going to work. Let's try putting some of that into practice. So starting off talking about some more defensive play, you're actually often better off using this mech in more of a static, positional kind of play. You don't want to be getting overconfident in this mech. So maybe the clue's in the name, but sometimes it's just best to sit back a little bit and give yourself a position of advantage and stalk a little bit. Having a good awareness of what your team's up to is pretty key to this. In this case I'm just waiting for these two LRM boats to get distracted, and then I'm going to pop back up and put down some shots on them. If you're going to be setting up defensively with your team, just pick a nice location where the terrain allows all of your weapons to be in optimal range. If you've got a nice crest of a ridge, or a little tunnel, etc., that's not too hard. With the amount of firepower and armour you've got, you can pretty much be the ultimate bottleneck if you want to be. It's always best to be thinking one position ahead, that being where you want to set up next. In this case I'm at the bottom of the ridge, and I've decided I think it's safe to move forward. So I'm just going to put on a bit of a burst of speed and make a dash for the next bit of cover. You can surmise this by simply saying that no good Stalker really needs to have an AMS system, because if you're using cover and your speed properly, you're not going to be caught in the open at any time. I've made it clear that I think a Stalker's better with a bit of speed, and it's all well and good having mobility, but make sure you use it in the right place. When you're out in the open, using mobility against one slow target, that's great, that's effective, and you should definitely do that. But against a numerically superior opposition, and with no cover, a little bit of speed is not going to help you at all. If you've got some teammates helping you out, or if you've got buildings around you, so that's protecting you from long-range missiles and limiting how many enemies can come at you at once, then brawling is often a fairly good solution. You want to keep them in your crosshairs, but it should always be plan B. Plan A should always be to have a good position in the first place. As a general rule of thumb for attacking, always try to keep the odds in your favour, because one-on-one you're pretty safe against most targets as long as you're in a range that you're comfortable with. You shouldn't really be taking too many risks and sticking your neck out unless you've got a chance to ambush someone, and that's again where speed can come in handy. So that concludes part 1. This was a very cheesy build that I was focusing on today, and I hope people can at least understand that there is a little bit of sense to why I'm looking at it. In part 2 I'm going to be playing with PPCs and long-range missiles, what are in my opinion some much more balanced and more enjoyable builds. So the next video will be just trying to put all the pieces together, just looking at a couple of games, hopefully in their entirety, and we'll be rolling out in some proper traditional Stalker builds. In the meantime, I'm still working on the format for this show, if you want to call it a show. The feedback I've been getting so far has been really helpful, and I think I've got some ideas of how I can just improve things in general. And if anyone else has some more feedback, then by all means, comment below.